Hello, welcome to Life Talk for Thursday, October 5th, 2017. I'm Mark Crutcher.
And I'm Renee Hobbs. I'm glad you're joining us today.
Thank you for being with us. We have got a really interesting show, and it kind of touches on some things that we've talked about before, but we're going to be having a special guest here in a minute to take the theory and the arguments that we've made before about this particular subject and show you what the real world application of them is. One of the things that I think is a problem with people that first come to the abortion or to the pro-life movement is they think that the people on the other side are just like us. They just have a different opinion. They just happen to be. It's kind of like they say, well, we're Dallas Cowboy fans and they're Washington Redskin fans. Well, it's not anything at all like that. Nothing could be further from the truth. And they also have this tendency to think that because the people that actually work in the abortion clinic, the actual abortionists, have an MD after their name, and they're called doctors, that they are a cut above everybody else. And they're like the doctor that they go and visit their own personal physician. He just happens to do abortions.
Right. That's far from the truth.
Far from the truth.
Far from the truth.
And
these are the guys that were fired or
couldn't get a practice
at a regular OBGYN.
Right.
And then they decided to go into the baby killing business.
Well, for them, Renee, it was a choice between driving a BMW or washing BMWs.
Yeah.
That's kind of the analogy that I've always made. Because like you say, these are guys that either lost a career that they had in the legitimate medical community and couldn't get another one started, or never got a good practice going, or a lot of them had malpractice insurance problems because they were such bad doctors that their malpractice insurance rates went through the roof, and they couldn't keep in legitimate medicine.
Well, and if you read the history of most of these abortionists, their family history, their upbringing, and what they get into, drugs and alcohol, and it's a downward spiral from there.
It really is, and it's just an example of that there's no right way to do a wrong thing.
Oh, absolutely not.
And these people know that what they're doing is wrong. They'll never admit it, but they know that what they're doing is wrong.
Right, yeah.
They have to know that.
Yeah, they definitely know.
You know, one of the things that I've always tried to make clear to people, and I think I may have even talked about this to you, is we support the use of the graphic images because the American people, as Father Frank says, the American people won't reject abortion until they see abortion.
Mm-hmm.
And so we do promote the use of the graphic images. But don't think that the graphic images, I've had people tell me, well, we're going to go to the abortion clinic with our graphic images and show them to the abortionist and he'll turn around.
He sees it all day, every day.
He knows more about abortion than you'll ever know.
And then they have to say that they're Christians, and go to church to ease their minds, too. So,
good luck. You know, when we did our on that going to church business, when we did our undercover survey called Pro-Choice America, years and years ago, one of the things we found is that a very high percentage of these people do go to church. And I think I think they're trying to cover their bases.
You're right.
And so they're trying to convince themselves that they're a good person, and they're trying to convince everybody else that they're a good person.
Right.
They're a good moral person.
This just happens to be their career, their job.
But we've gone over this before. There is no such thing as a pro-choice Christian. We've had shows on this before. I've written a lot of articles about it. There is no such thing. If you're out there and you consider yourself a Christian and you consider yourself pro-choice, you can be one or you can be the other, but you can't be both at the same time. Mm-hmm. You're a liar. You're a heretic. If you think you're a pro-choice Christian, there is no such thing. You cannot be a pro-choice Christian. But anyway, that's a little bit off the subject here. One of the people that keeps cropping up in the news when we start talking about bad abortionists and abortionists that kill their women, they all kill babies, but they kill the women.
Or severely injure. Or
they're not able to kill the baby without killing the woman too, sometimes.
Right.
And that's not uncommon. But one of these guys is a guy named Leroy Carhart. And when I first started tracking him many, many years ago and knowing about him, and we would talk about him on Life Talk, he was in Nebraska, and he had a real checkered history there.
Yeah, I was going to say he's a very shady character.
Very shady character. And we've got an expert on Leroy Carhart. If I don't know if she wants to go by that title. That's not a very flattering title. But anyway, Joining us from the Montgomery County, Maryland, right outside Washington, D.C., is Ellen Milano. Hello, Ellen.
Hi, Ellen.
Hi, Mark.
How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for being on. First off, before we go any further, you have been watching this guy for a long time and studying him. Tell us what you know about him, and then we'll get into what he's doing today and what the future looks like for him. But anyway, give us a little quick synopsis of the history of him that you know about.
Sure. And besides knowing his history, I've had the unfortunate privilege of having the opportunity to talk to him week after week for nearly 6 years as he comes and goes to work here in Germantown. So, he really is one of the most notorious and dedicated abortion activists in the United States. He's basically a barbarian. He is brutal. If you've ever read any of his descriptions of doing dismemberment abortions, it's brutal, the way that he describes his abortions. He is mostly known right now for two things: his terrible track record of injuring women and his attempts to keep partial birth abortion legal. So he's been to Supreme Court twice to keep partial birth abortion legal. And his track record just keeps getting longer and longer of the women who have been either killed, and that's 2 women, or hospitalized. And here in Germantown, we've counted and recorded on video 10 ambulances that have rushed women away from his clinic. His history is he's a 73 graduate of medical school. He was in the Air Force as a surgeon for quite some number of years, and then he opened up his Bellevue office in Nebraska in about 1988. In 91, he started doing abortions full-time, and that was in response and after a suspicious fire that happened at his farm, which was declared an arson by the police, but he blamed it on the pro-lifers and used that as a motivating element to his activism.
And there were some horses that were burned to death in that fire, and he collected on the insurance on those horses.
Yeah, it's all very, very suspicious. And he had a bad track record anyway with his animals and the animal control. So, he's got a terrible history of sloppiness in the, with his patients, changing records, teaching the sonographers how to change and falsify records. He's a nightmare for women. We consider him to be waging his own personal war on women.
Right.
With all the different injuries that he's had. Kristen Gilbert died in 2005, and that was attributed to complications from that he performed on her.
And is it Jennifer Morbelli?
Yes.
And Jennifer Morbelli. She was the beginning of this horrible track record. That happened in February of 2013. And up to that time, he had been here since December of 2010. Everyone was a bit nervous because they knew who he was, they knew his track record, and we didn't have evidence of any injuries yet, but boy, he started off with, a horrible, horrible incident. 29-year-old school teacher from Long Island who came down here with her family and died less than 24 hours after finishing up her late-term abortion with him. Yep. And, he, in my opinion, was quite negligent. We saw her coming into the clinic, and we knew Tuesday that there was something terribly wrong with that woman. She was deathly pale, and by Wednesday she needed a wheelchair to be taken in order to deliver the baby on Wednesday. No other patients have we ever seen that were that incapacitated by the 4th day of their abortion. It was all very suspect. So when we were informed that had happened and she had passed, in a certain sense we weren't surprised, unfortunately. But that began his bad track record.
Were you able to talk to Jennifer?
Just very briefly. and I could repeat on the radio what was said to me. So her family was not happy about our attempts to warn them and to
and I believe
caution them about.
even after the passing, they still sided on the pro-choice side. I don't think that they
That's
ever.
right.
Yeah.
That's astonishing when you think about it. But let's make sure people understand what's going on here. When you say the fourth day of the abortion, a lot of people think that when you're having an abortion, you go in there and 30 minutes later you walk out and you're not pregnant anymore. But we're talking about a late-term abortion here where they have to do multiple laminaria insertions to dilate the cervix because you have to have big instruments when you're doing these very late abortions, and the baby comes out in big parts. So the cervix has to be dramatically enlarged through dilation. So what you're
That's
telling
right,
me,
Mark.
so what you're telling me here is, if when she went in there the first day, she might have been okay. She gets laminaria, then she has to come back a second day for additional laminaria. Sometimes they come back, it depends on how late the abortion is and how much the cervix dilates. They have to come back subsequent days. And what you're telling me is that each day she was decaying a little bit,
Gravely ill looking.
deteriorating, to the point that the last day she has to be taken in there on a wheelchair, and yet he still continues to ignore that and do more laminaria and do this late-term abortion on her and kill her.
Especially when the sidewalk counselors only were able to watch her go in and they knew something was wrong with her, and he was in the same room with her talking to her.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a doctor.
Right.
And they're sidewalk counselors.
Right. How far along was she?
She was 30.
Because that's a viable baby. The baby could have been born and
Yeah,
lived.
definitely.
Absolutely.
But here's the point that we need to be making here. Several points. First off, if you were to go out to a National Abortion Federation conference, let's say, or a Planned Parenthood gathering of some sort, and you were to ask them, "What are you guys doing about Leroy Carhart?" They would leap to his defense like he was Marcus Welby or somebody. Right?
That's right.
He's
their hero.
We've seen this time and time and time again. They don't care what he's doing to these women. They certainly don't care what he's doing to the babies. We can write them off right up front. They don't care what he's doing to the babies to the women, as long as he's there keeping that abortion mill open. That's all they care about. Now, let me make the point, too. This is like Gosnell to some degree. Let's just say that today, Carhart was to murder his wife, like this abortionist up here in Oklahoma did a few years back.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's say that he was to shoot and kill his wife, and he winds up going to prison, and all this horrible stuff comes out. What's going to happen is, one of the things that will happen, is that the abortion lobby will now come out and say, "Oh yeah, this is a bad guy. But he's not representative of the quality practitioners that we have working at our facilities."
Yeah, he's an anomaly.
But at that point, they would distance themselves from him as far as they could get. They wouldn't be within the same zip code of him. Once it was obvious that he was going down, right? And he couldn't do him any more good. But the fact is, he's doing exactly the same things right now that they would be distance themselves from then, and yet they'll defend him. They will defend this guy to the hilt until the time comes that he's of no longer any use to them. Then they will turn their back on him. And we've seen this, like I said, I remember, as you know, believe this or not, I still get letters from this guy, Brian Finkel, who I went after for many, many years, along with John Jakubczyk out in Arizona. We knew that he was raping his patients. We had them. We had one of them right here in our office. And we dealt with a lot of them. He was sexually assaulting and raping his patients. And to tell you how long this went on, one of the women that he raped, later she had another baby. That little girl grew up and had a baby. She went to Finkel for an abortion, and he raped her. So that's how long this was.
2 generations, yeah.
That's how for 2 generations he was raping women. And the abortion industry was treating him like he was some sort of hero. They knew this was going on, and they didn't care.
Right. Because they're for women.
But the second that he got indicted And 106 more women came forward, and he got indicted for all these rapes and sexual assaults. And once he got convicted and got 34 and a half years in the Arizona State Penitentiary, which is where he is right now, and as you know, I've let you read them. I still get letters from him. It's very bizarre. But anyway, the second that he got indicted and was going away and couldn't do him any good, then all of a sudden they never heard of the guy.
Yeah.
And he was a bad actor, and he was, he just kind of slipped through the cracks, and we didn't know.
Yeah, it just makes you wonder how many of those people are actually writing him in jail or going to visit him, and
none of them. None.
Zero.
Of them. His wife has left him. And as you can tell from looking at those letters,
he's lost it.
He's losing his mind.
He's lost it.
He's losing its grip. But anyway, that's this. So the point we need to be making here is the Brian Finkels of the world, the Gosnells of the world, and the Carhartts of the world are typical of what you get in abortion clinics. These are not the anomalies. What's his name down in Houston that we went and interviewed the 3 girls from?
Carpin, yes.
Douglas Carpin. These are not the anomalies.
All right.
These are the everyday people that they get. And the fact is, this is all they can ever get. Nobody goes to medical school with the idea in mind of getting out and going to work at a Planned Parenthood abortion mill. They don't do it. They end up there, like you were talking about at the first of the show. They end up there because they were bad doctors. They couldn't get a practice going, or they lost their practice, or they got in malpractice trouble with their insurance company, or whatever it might be.
Right.
That's who winds up at abortion clinics.
Yep.
These are not the cream of the crop. These are not frontline OBGYNs. If they were, they wouldn't be working in an abortion clinic.
No, they certainly wouldn't.
This is all they can get.
But good news for Carhart, he has sold his business. I mean, he's no longer practicing in Maryland,
But we don't know what he's doing.
His future plans, it looks like, and Elaine, you probably know this a little bit better than me, is to open up another facility somewhere else. Is that correct?
We're told it's going to be nearby. His staff is nearby, and from my discussions with his staff, they don't want to go real far to go to work, and he needs a staff. And let me tell you, there's so much turnover with staff, and we're very grateful for your good resources that you've given us, that we give to them, about their real risks of working there besides the moral risks. But yeah, it's supposedly going to be soon, and it's going to be nearby.
Well, yeah, what you're talking about there is something we've discussed here, and we have resources on the internet on our websites to deal with this. The turnover rate at abortion clinics is astronomical.
Right.
The average abortion clinic in this country, if you go to work there and you're there 90 days from now, you're the senior employee.
Well, and for new employees that come in, they don't have an interview at the abortion clinic per se.
Right.
They go off to other facilities, other places, hotels or something for interviews to trick the people into working there.
Yeah, well, that's what happened with Kristen Breedlove that worked at an abortion clinic in Dallas. She got interviewed at a hotel for a job in a quote-unquote women's clinic.
Right.
She thought she was going to work for an OBGYN.
Right.
She didn't know it was an abortion clinic till the day she showed up to work. By that time,
we find that too.
I'm sorry?
We find that too.
Right.
We because there's only one out, we started to dub them clinic worker saves. Because we'd catch them going in for interviews, and many of them didn't know that it was an abortion clinic, much less that it was a late-term abortion clinic.
Right.
And even women who were in there, had been there for a number of weeks, who were new, when we'd start talking to them, they were disbelieving that what was really going on in there.
Yep.
And we had, just by giving them the truth, we had quite a number of workers who left.
Well, this young lady that I'm talking about, Kristen, here in Dallas, told me that she applied for this job at this hotel. They hired her and told her where to show up for work. And she had to take off like 3 weeks before she could show up to work because she lived in a different city. And she was a single mom. She had a job. She had to quit her job. She had to get her kid out of daycare. And she gave up her apartment, and she moved from that city to Dallas. And when she showed up that first day at work, she said, I didn't want to work in an abortion clinic, but man, I'm between the rock and the hard spot. She
needed to make money.
I've got my kid in a new daycare. I've rented a new apartment. I've given up my old apartment. I've moved out of the city. She said, I thought, I've got to stay here.
Right.
Next thing you know, she's working full-time, working at an abortion clinic. So this shows the level of deception that they have to go to just to get employees.
Yes.
And the fact is they don't train them very much, because why would you put a lot of time training an employee, Renee, if you knew that employee wasn't going to be there 60 or 90 days from now?
Oh, you're not. You're going to have other employees
Right.
train them on the job.
We had another young lady, Paula, I can't remember her last name. Anyway, she worked in an abortion clinic out in Midland. She was a worker at a convenience store, like a 7-Eleven or some other kind of convenience store. Wasn't a 7-Eleven, but it was another local chain. And the abortionist there used to come fill up his car. He was paying for his gas one day and asked this girl if she liked her job, and she said, I'd like to have a different job. He hired her. She quit. She had an 8th grade education. Her husband was in the state penitentiary here in Texas. She had an 8th grade education. He hired her, and she said that within 2 days she was given injections. She was given Depo-Provera injections within 2 days after going to work there.
So scary. They play with medicine like it's nothing, like it's no big deal.
It's not medicine, though, to them.
Yeah.
It's baby killing.
Yeah.
One thing we've seen in our experience there in Germantown with his staff, they're unbelievably unprofessional.
Right.
It's just amazing how badly they treat the women. They, would threaten multiple times. They threatened women if they spoke to the sidewalk counselors. This is after they had already killed their baby with a lethal injection. They threatened not to finish their abortion if they continued to speak with us. They also wouldn't allow the significant other, their support person who brought them there, into the clinic sometimes, because they didn't have their ID, and the woman would be standing outside in the rain or the cold crying, and they still wouldn't let their the father of the baby in.
One thing I'd like to see happen, Ellen, and it is reflected in what you're saying here. For people who are pro-life or maybe on the fence or marginally pro-life or ambivalent or whatever about this issue, I would invite each one of you to get in touch with the pro-lifers in the community nearest you that go to the sidewalks like Ellen does and say, look, tell them, I'm not going to go there and protest. I'm not even going to pray. I'm just going to stand there and watch what goes on. Stand on that sidewalk and watch what goes on, and watch the people coming in and out, and look at all the things that go on surrounding that abortion clinic. If every American would do that, this thing would change overnight. Because you don't even have to go inside the abortion clinic. If you just see what goes on outside.
Well, and the spiritual aspect of it is super strong. It is. I mean, for Christians, for people that go out there to protest and talk to the women, you can't help but get on your knees and pray for the women inside the clinics and pray for the babies and their souls, because they're already on the bed there. Yeah. And so, I mean, it's very strong, the spiritual.
Going standing on that sidewalk
will change you.
It's overwhelming.
Yes.
And, I told you about a young lady that I had working here, and she had come here right out of college, and she was young and feisty and happy all the time, and kind of happy-go-lucky girl, and just getting her life started. But she was pro-life and wanted to work in a pro-life organization, but she didn't really know anything about abortion. She just knew philosophically it's wrong to kill these babies. And she came to work here, and she was always really upbeat. And we had an occasion one time to have to go to Fort Worth for some event, and we were going to go to the sidewalk at an abortion clinic down there, and she was so excited about it. We're driving down there, and it's almost like, wow, this is pretty cool. I'm actually going to go to the sidewalks. And I'm telling you, when we drove up and she saw those sidewalk counselors that were already there, and there was a line of cars there of girls pulling up and getting out and going in.
And you can obviously, they're pregnant, and
you see what's going on.
Yeah.
And you see the sidewalk counselors trying to talk to them, and some guys got them by the elbow and shoving them in the door, or the death escorts got them by the elbow and dragging them in. And I'm telling you, this young lady, we pulled up there, and 5 minutes earlier she was so excited. We're getting close. We're fixing to be there. All of a sudden now she is totally silent.
It changed her.
She doesn't know what to say. She was totally rattled, and she got out and went and stood on that sidewalk and talked to some of the counselors and saw these girls coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, she felt the spiritual component to the abortion issue for the first time.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're looking death right in the face.
And
I mean,
you can feel it.
Yeah.
It's a feeling that you cannot describe until you actually have it.
Yeah.
To stand on that sidewalk and see these girls going in there, and then if you wait around and see them come back out and see how broken they are, and they're crying and they're upset, and you know they're sitting there thinking, I just left my baby inside this building, and they're grinding it up in the garbage disposal right now.
That's great advice, Mark, especially at a late-term clinic, because you've got women who are 8 months pregnant going in, and they're clearly, out to there pregnant. And most people, including sometimes the police who were guarding them, just look at them with their jaw dropped open, saying, can this be legal?
Right.
Can this really be legal in our country? That, they should be going to the delivery room.
Right.
And
some of them could be going to
that it's a viable baby.
And some of them could be going to the delivery room right that moment and have a baby that lives.
And they should be.
Right.
Absolutely. With Carhart, we're hoping that the House Bill 36, which has passed the House and is just been introduced to the Senate, is passed by the Senate, and that Trump signs it. That would be, the national bill that outlaws or bans
abortion
after 20 weeks.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we have seen from our work on the ground that the truth about late-term abortion is that it's being used as birth control. These are not desperate situations in many cases. There's nothing wrong with the mother or the child. It's just for convenience. It's for a broken relationship. It's for has changed, and because it's legal, and oftentimes these women come and there's no payment. They only have to get themselves there because they are funded.
Yep, that's right.
So we are very hopeful that will be passed and save so many people's lives.
Well, Ellen, I appreciate you being on the show with us today, and we thank God for you and people like you that are out there on those sidewalks every day, because that's a tough gig. I've been there, and I can tell you it's emotionally draining, and you have to have the right mental mindset to be able to do that without going crazy. So, well, maybe you are crazy. I don't know, Ellen. You could.
No, it's a call, and you better be spiritually prepared out there, because the devil is after you. So, it's a call, but it's a great grace, and
I don't care where you are.
Very happy to do it.
I don't care where you are in the pro-life movement. The devil comes after you every day.
Right.
I can tell you that from almost 40 years' experience at this. So it is a spiritual battle at its root. That's what it'll always be. That's what it's always been. This is a continuation of a battle that began in the Garden of Eden, and it's still going on. This is just the latest incarnation of it. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for joining us, Ellen, and keep us posted. If anything new happens out there, we'd like to bring you back on and have you give us an update.
Thanks, Ellen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
God bless you guys for all your good work.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Mm-hmm. Bye.
She's right. It is very difficult to be out there and doing and physically seeing these girls go in.
Yeah, emotionally, mentally, all of the above. It is a tough thing to do, but
it's tough.
It's definitely needed. We need to be out there praying.
But I'll tell you one thing: our people, like Ellen, and all the other sidewalk counselors out there, and all the other people that do whatever they do in the pro-life
Lynn
movement,
Mills, Michelle Herzog,
they're tougher than these people. God's tougher than Satan. Satan's mean and nasty, but God's tougher than him.
That's right.
And so ultimately we win. We know that.
Yep.
We've read the book. We've read the ending. We know how it comes out.
Yep. We've already
Anyway,
won.
We got any thing you need to bring up?
No, just show suggestions.
Yep.
As normal. Just
This one was a show
suggestion. It sure was.
Are you going to send her a cup, or are you just going to not blow that off?
No, you know what? I'm going to need to get her address. I don't have it.
Yep. If you send in a suggestion, we have you on the show, or we use your suggestion for a show, you get a free Life Dynamics mug, and it's really nice. It's a really good mug. So
it holds quite a bit. It's pretty deep.
yeah. So keep those suggestions coming in. Send them to Renee. You can email, text,
phone number,
smoke signal,
However you want to send it, you're more than welcome.
Get a hold of Renee, and we'll look at your suggestion. I think our next show is going to be one that's based on a suggestion, too. Anyway, that's all the time we have until, let's see, next Tuesday, right?
That's right.
Next show is next Tuesday. Until then, remember, Life Dynamics is not here to put up a good fight. We're here to win, because winning is what?
How the killing stops.
That's right.
We'll see you Tuesday. Have a good weekend.
Bye-bye.